tonight we're going to redo the review that we had done previously on Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. It came to my attention that the audio on the last review was really pretty terrible, and so given that this is one of my favorite first-person shooter World War II team games, we're going to redo the review. So hopefully this one will be better and you'll actually be able to hear what I'm saying above all the noises of the game. So Enemy Territory, as I mentioned before, Wolfenstein Enemy Territory was originally meant to be an expansion of the game Return to Castle Wolfenstein. So that makes it about 12 or 13 years old. So if you absolutely cannot get over bad graphics for the sake of great gameplay, you might as well quit watching now. If you can tolerate some, a little bit older graphics for some really spectacular gameplay, then listen on. So this is a World War II first-person shooter, team-based. So when you launch the game and you connect to a server, once you connect, you will be probably in a mode like this. Spectator says press L to open the limbo menu. Now I'm just on my own computer here. I'm not connected to a server, so you don't see anybody running around. When you press L, you get this very complex looking screen here that can be a little intimidating. But this is where you choose which team you want to be on as well as which class you're going to play. The classes are the same between the teams. The weapons do differ. So you pick, let's say I wanted to pick Allies, and we have these 5 classes here. So you've got Soldier, you've got Medic, Engineer, Field Op, and Covert Ops. So soldiers get to do the heavy weapons. They get the mortars, the panzers, flamethrowers, mobile MGs. Medics revive fallen teammates, heal up teammates that are still alive. Engineers are almost always needed. They're the ones that repair constructible things. They repair the tanks. They construct the command posts. They blow up dynamitable objectives. You almost always have to have an engineer to win a map. Then there's the field ops. They call in artillery and airstrike support as well as providing more ammunition for teammates. And finally there's the covert ops, which can take enemy uniforms from enemies that are dead but not gibbed, as well as deploying smoke canisters for cover. And they also have a satchel charge, which pretty much anything that is dynamitable, let me reverse that. There are some things that are satchelable, that anything that's satchelable can be dynamitable, can be blown up also with dynamite, but the dynamite has a 30-second timer. So command posts are the traditional example. Command posts can typically be destroyed with a satchel charge, which is a lot faster and easier than planting dynamite and then waiting the 30 seconds for the dynamite to blow before you can do anything else with it. So covert ops are very useful in some cases. They're also the snipers. They get the Garand and the FG-42. All too often people will get a covert op and do nothing but sit back and snipe, which is fun. But the probably the most underutilized part of the covert op is that smoke canister. Because when you're the engineer and you're running in there and you're trying to plant dynamite on an objective, it's often very helpful to have smoke cover so the enemy can't see you as you're planting the dynamite. Now, one of the reasons that I like Enemy Territory above most other first-person shooters is a combination of the classes, the fact that you actually level up experience in those different classes, and we'll look at that here in a second, and the depth of the game. The Enemy Territory has an incredible, in my opinion, incredible depth compared to pretty much any other first-person shooter that I know of. Several other games have attempted to capitalize on the popularity of Enemy Territory. None, in my opinion, have really been terribly successful. Quake Wars Enemy Territory was supposed to be a successor to E.T. Flopped pretty badly, in my opinion, again. Then there was Brink, which was supposed to be a spiritual successor to E.T. Also did not do very well. And then more recently, Dirty Bomb is again supposed to be a successor to Enemy Territory. None of them have really caught Enemy Territory's essence, in my opinion. And part of that is that they keep trying to capitalize monetarily on it. And that is, Enemy Territory, if I haven't mentioned it already, is a completely free game. Like, you can go out right now, get enemy territory, download it completely free. There is no single player, by the way. You can only, I mean, you can load up a map and play it by yourself, but it's really pretty boring by yourself. There is no single player campaign. So, but it's completely free, and things like Dirty Bomb, you got microtransactions, you've got, you know, the ability to make maps is typically not public. Whereas when Enemy Territory came out, we also had map-making tools that came out. They're not at all easy to use. There's quite a steep learning curve to making a good map for Enemy Territory. But there are places out there that still make new maps for ET, even after all this time. So there is still an active community for it, and it is a lot of fun. And the depth to it, getting back to the depth point, is a lot of games like Dirty Bomb, you have several different game modes, but what you have to do to win in a particular game mode is really pretty much set in stone. And no matter how many different maps you have for a particular mode, what you have to do to win will always be the same. That is absolutely not the case with Enemy Territory. If you want to win a particular map in Enemy Territory, you have to know what the objectives of that map are. And the reason behind that is there's a whole scripting language behind the scenes that basically anything that can trigger a scripting event can potentially be the winning condition. So you get examples. I mean, there's only a handful of things that you really can do in the game. You can activate things. You can pick up something that is a capture the flag type option. You can construct things. You can blow things up. But the order you do them in, what you have to do to win that particular map, can vary vastly between the different maps. So part of the limbo menu, this section down here, is telling you basically what you have to do to win that particular map. So this first one gives you kind of an overview of what it is that map does, and you can cycle through these. Oh, this one only has the one. I should have known that. You can cycle through those on a lot of maps. Oh, you have to select a team. That's what it is. So there's 8 objectives here for allies. Right, the overview, and it tells you one by one: steal the tank, protect the tank and escort it, blah, blah, blah. So it'll tell you all these objectives that you have to do in order to win this map. Now, the next map that loads up on whatever server you're connected to will probably have a completely different set of objectives. So in order to win a particular map, you have to know the objectives for that map. And to me, that gives Enemy Territory a depth and a replayability that so many other games lack. So anyway, let's jump in, give you some example here.
Steal the tank. Construct the command post.
So here we go. You have to wait for the respawn timer. You might see, well, it's covered up now, but there's a respawn timer over there. 5, 4, 3, 2. So when you die, there's several stages of death. When you die, the first stage is you're down, but you're not out. A medic can come along, poke you with a needle, and you're back up and going. The next stage of death, you're actually fully out. You have to wait for the next respawn to come back into the game. And then the last stage is your body's actually what we call gibbed in little pieces, parts.
Command post constructed.
And the covert ops, I mentioned they could take enemy uniforms. The covert ops can take your uniform in that second stage of death, where you're totally out, but your body's not in little pieces. So, and before I finish repairing this, on this particular map, the enemy spawns here, right? And so they get this spawn initially. In order to get that spawn, we have to, quote-unquote, steal the tank, which means repairing it and getting it to move just a little bit.
We've repaired the tank. We've stolen the tank.
So now,
destroy the tank barriers.
At this point
Escort
now,
the tank to the bank courtyard.
the spawns change, and this spawn is now no longer the enemy spawn. This spawn is now where the team that I'm currently on would spawn. And so tanks, there are vehicles in this game like this tank, but they're not vehicles in the typical sense that you would think of for most first-person shooters. You can't get in it and drive it just anywhere you want. Now, tanks you can get in. They have a mobile MG that will overheat. all of the escortable vehicles in this game have a predefined fixed track that they go along. And so then the enemy, you see these, you're near the tank barrier, the enemy will construct
the command post! Stop the tank!
things
Construct the tank barriers!
to hinder your progress. Now those are in fixed locations, so again these are objectives that are decided, from whenever the person that made the map made them into the map. So you can't just put down a barrier wherever you want it to be. And again, you will need an engineer really to be able to construct these. So for example, I run out here, here's a barrier, I can construct this. Another thing to note is this bar down here in the lower right. That's my charge bar. Building command posts typically makes that bar charge faster. Now, not always. Again, it depends on the map. There are some maps where building a command post...
Congratulations on your promotion, Herr Oberschütze. Tank barrier constructed!
Where building a command post will actually give you a forward spawn, or they may give you other effects. Now, I just got a promotion. You notice this star over here in front of the, on top of the engineering icon? That means I leveled up in that skill. So there are RPG elements, I guess you could say, in that you level in the different skills. You notice in the limbo menu here now I've got a little indicator that says I'm level 1 engineer. You can get level 4 in all of these. Now, don't get attached to your XP. It's not RPG in the sense of once you level, you'll have that XP forever. You typically, it depends on what server you're connected to. Your XP is specific to the server you're playing on. And how long that XP lasts depends on the configuration of that server. A lot of servers these days either never do a reset, or they never do a reset as long as you connect back to the server within a certain amount of time, like XP resets within a week or something. So as long as you log back in within a week, you'll maintain your XP. Getting higher XP gives you certain benefits. For example, this one in the middle is Battle Sense. If I get level 4 Battle Sense, I will be able to actually see enemy landmines, which is another thing actually that engineers can do. They can plant landmines. Ta-da, landmine. Now if I was an enemy, I wouldn't be able to see that. So as an enemy, I just come walking through, and now once it's tripped, you'll notice as an engineer, your own mines do not lovingly remember you. So if I step off of this now, it'll blow up. I can defuse it. Enemies can defuse my landmine as well. Enemy engineers specifically can defuse my landmine as well. Covert ops can spot these, so their entire team can see them. And once they're spotted, you can drop a grenade on them and they'll blow up. So as you can see, that nearly killed me. The benefits of leveling up. Engineering, if you get level 4 engineering, you get a flak jacket, which makes you more immune to damage, which is great because engineers are always running into the line of fire. Medic is probably one of the more pronounced differences in that initially medics get a revive needle that will only bring a teammate back to half health. When they reach level 4, they get a needle that allows them to bring a teammate back to full health. Now, another thing to note, I know I'm skipping around a little bit, I apologize. The field ops, I'm not actually going to switch classes right now, but the field ops are able to, well, I guess I can do this. Let's do
Escort the tank to the bank courtyard.
Field ops can call in both artillery strikes and air strikes, but all of the field ops on your team share a charge bar. So field ops are probably one of the classes that benefits the most from having a command post built, because they need that charge bar to fill up so that they can call in another strike. So let me get ahead of the tank here. And you probably wouldn't want to be doing this as much on this one because you're trying to bring the tank through here, but
Firing for effect.
I can fire for effect. And then you wait a while. You get an initial burst, and then you get some follow-up barrages. And those, you get a level 4 field op that isn't having his charge bar drained by other team members. You can put down some pretty sustained fire. So field ops are great for holding choke points. Let's see. We'll go back engineer because we need to blow up those barriers. Grenades. By the way, you can cook grenades. Oh, I only had the one. Shoot. You can cook grenades. And I just missed the spawn, which was not what I was trying to do. But, good example. If you die or kill yourself at the wrong time, you'll have to wait the full amount of time for the spawn to roll back around. Now, the spawn times are built into the maps originally. Some servers override that setting. My personal opinion, that's a terrible idea because one of the few tools at a map maker's disposal for balancing the maps is adjusting the spawn times. So on some maps where they have adjusted the spawn time, it'll be terribly lopsided. Okay, so for this one, for a tank to get through a tank barrier, doesn't really matter what it looks like. It can't just roll over the tank barrier. So the tank has to be at the barrier has to be gone, and the tank has to be repaired, and there has to be a teammate in escort range for it to get past the tank barrier.
Destroy the tank barrier.
Come on, tank. They are kind of slow, but that's good considering, you know, the other team is trying to stop it. So once I dropped it, it's down, but it's not armed. Just like the landmine, I dropped and then I had to
Dynamite planted.
arm. Engineers do everything with these pliers. Magic pliers. You wave pliers at tanks to repair them. You wave pliers at things to arm them. A little bit quirky, but it works. Now, in vanilla enemy territory, there is no indicator of how long the dynamite has been ticking. It's 30 seconds from the time it's armed, but you just kind of have to guess how long it's been since you started it going. And some mods, like in a little bit, will show the silent mod, which now you see this constructible disappeared because my tank is now past that barrier. Silent mod, when you arm dynamite, it will actually give you an indicator of how much longer is left on that dynamite. Now you notice, I don't know if you noticed or not, but the gun still had heat on it from where it had overheated previously. So just letting it sit for a while doesn't cause the gun to cool down on its own. You actually have to have somebody in the tank waiting for that cooldown to happen. So when you're in the tank, you really want to pulse your MG. You don't want to just, because if you just hang on to it, you'll see it'll overheat. And then can't fire. You eventually begin to be able to fire, but there's a cooldown, initial cooldown there.
Dynamite planted.
So you can see why there's really no single player on this. It's if there's nobody else on whatever server you're connected to, you just really don't have any resistance at all. So part of the secret to enjoying this game...
Congratulations on your promotion, Corporal. Tank barrier destroyed.
Part of the secret to enjoying this game is to find a really good server that has actual people on it a lot. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the servers that are out there, and there are still a good number of servers, but a lot of the servers that are out there run bots. And so, unfortunately, the game doesn't have a filter for bots. The Silent mod is actually under current development, and if anybody from the Silent mod team actually sees this review, I would highly recommend that they add a bot filter to the online list, because what happens more often than not is somebody that's new to enemy territory will see something, say, I want to try that. They get the game, they connect to a server, you have to download whatever assets you need, which happens automatically when you connect to the server. So you download potentially a bunch of maps.
Only 5 minutes, soldier.
And then you get in there and you start playing, and you play for 5 minutes or so, and then suddenly you realize, I'm playing against all bots. I'm the only real human on the whole server. And that can be very disappointing, very frustrating, especially for new players. So a bot, no bot filter is something that Silent desperately needs. Enemy territory in general desperately needs. Now there are barriers for the truck as well. So you see right there, that's a barrier that the enemy team could have built. Just like the tank, I have to be close enough to this truck, and it has to be repaired. The enemy can damage the truck. They cannot destroy it, but they can damage it.
The truck is past the second barrier.
And so the goal here is just to escort it to right over here. And we win. Now, I would like to show you one more. That map that we just played is one of the original maps that came with enemy territory when it was originally released. That last one we just played is called Gold Rush. This one that I'm loading up now is one called Railgun. It also is one of the original 6, but it will illustrate for you how vastly different the objectives can be from one map to the next.
Stop the first target. Capture the depot yard. Construct the command post.
So here we are. Actually, I think I may be on the wrong... Yes, I'm on the wrong team. Box here, you might think from the last map, oh, that's a tank barrier? Odd place for a tank barrier. Nope, it's not a tank barrier. It is a constructible that constructs a emplaced MG. And by the way, this MG can be damaged, and then you repair it same way, wave your pliers at it. So in this map, last map it was Allies that was attacking. This map is an Axis attacks map, so I need to switch teams here.
Get the first tug to the depot. Capture the depot yard. Construct the command post.
And wait for the spawn timer. Here we go. So in this one, we're trying to fire a railgun, but in order to fire the railgun, we first have to get the ammunition for it, and the ammunition is big and heavy, and we can't carry it by ourselves, so we have to escort these tugs to the correct places. The fascinating thing about this map is the tug needs to go one way or the other in different phases of the map. In this phase of the map, the tug for Axis needs to go in the direction we're traveling. If there was a... That's the railgun over there, by the way. If there was an ally...
Raise the track switch!
If I switched teams as an ally and then jumped back into here, it knows which phase of the map we're on, and the tug would start moving back the direction it just came from. There's a switch here that basically just acts as a kind of temporary barrier. So Axis wants it up right now, Allies would rather have it down at the moment, and then once the tug is past that point, my Axis would like to have the switch. I guess it's not quite far enough.
Lower the track switch.
There we go. Axis wants this back down, kind of just as a... Because, again, right now, we're still in phase 1 of the map. If an ally jumps on this, it's going to go back toward that direction. And so this is part of the power of that underlying scripting language that, thankfully as a player, you don't care about. The map just works, but it goes to show you that what can happen in a map can be pretty impressive, in my opinion. So this begins phase 2 of the map. That's the ammo it's loading onto the tug.
Ammo loaded onto the first tug. Get the first tug back to the North Crane.
So now when I jump on this, the tug's going to start moving this way. Well, Allies don't want that, So now if I was on allies and I jumped in here, it would start moving the tug back that direction. So you see, it'll move the tug different directions, you know, even if you're on the same team, depending on which phase of the map it is, trying to keep that ammo
Depot yard captured.
away from where the enemy wants it to go. These poles, you can touch them. They act as spawn points. You can actually go into the limbo menu and select which one. If you have several spawn points available, you can choose which one you want to spawn at. So again, this game involves a lot of running back and forth and trying to control the tug here. Killing whoever's currently in the cockpit and taking it back the other direction.
Track switch raised.
So ideally you would have had a teammate that would have raised that before you got to it.
Lower the track switch.
And same thing here after you got past. You don't have to raise and lower this. It's not
Track switch
a
lower.
winning portion of the objective. It's just a hindrance to for the other team. So the tug's almost all the way back to where it started from, but this time we've got the ammo with us. Hello, ammo. I can't see what's going on. Crane comes over. Picks up the ammo. Takes it over to the second tug. And at this point, once it reaches, you know, this point and the ammo begins to be loaded over, the opposing team can no longer get the ammo back over onto the other tug. It's
Ammo loaded onto the second tug.
You've now just
Get
got
the second tug to the rail gun.
this very short piece of track here to fight over, which typically goes pretty quickly, and Axis pretty typically gets the ammo here to the railgun on this last part pretty easily.
Ammo loaded onto railgun.
And there's no
Fire the
animation
railgun.
to show that it had been loaded on, but then the ending objective is to run up here once the ammo is here. You can't do this to win the map until the ammo is there, but you run up here and you see the use icon. All I have to do now is press F to win the map. So this is an example of, you know, the ending final objective is not to escort something, it's not to blow something up, it's not to construct something, it's to actually press the use key after all these other things have been done. And so that's kind of an example. And by the way, this can be destroyed. If allies were on their game, they would have destroyed this, and you would have actually had to have gotten an engineer up here. There's a constructible crate that shows up. Engineer would have had to have rebuilt the controls, and then anybody on the Axis team can use it. But this just gives you an idea, an inkling of the kind of depth that is available in enemy territory games that just I have not really seen that kind of depth in most other games. You know, most other games you get maybe 5 or so different game modes, but you know exactly what you have to do regardless of how the map is laid out in those game modes. And to me that just kind of, after playing ET and realizing that the depth that is available in ET, those other games that just have a few modes that are well defined are just almost boring. I mean, it's just apples and oranges. So I press F, fire the railgun, and there we go. I win. Okay. So, nice little ending animation there. So what I would like to do now is show you some actual real gameplay, and I will go ahead and issue a language warning now, because part of what I'm going to do is connect to the TeamSpeak of the server that I frequent, and there's no telling what you're going to hear once I connect there. So fair warning. To me, part of the yeah, no, I'm repeating myself. Part of the fun of playing ET is actually talking with your teammates, joking with them, you know, that kind of thing. So having a good server that has an actual TeamSpeak associated with it is important to me.